Okay, is everyone ready?
Yep.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the June 2nd work session of the Oregon City Schools Board of Education. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We have the roll call, Mrs. Fruth.
Mr. Shea,
Present.
Mr. Kennedy,
Here.
Mrs. Miller. Here. Mrs. Molnar
Here.
and Mr. Zavisky.
Here.
Okay, we need a motion to adopt the agenda as written.
So moved.
Second.
All right.
So the only
Discussion.
comment I'll have on that is we've got two items listed, the school finances and levy. They're not two separate issues. They're going to be commingled and really talked about as one.
Yes, I would think so. Thank you. Roll call.
All right, Mrs. Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Kennedy,
Yes.
Mr. Shea,
Yes.
Mr. Zavisky,
Yes.
and Mrs. Molnar.
Yes. Okay, I'm not sure if Mrs. Fruth wants to start or if Mr. Zavisky wishes to start.
Yeah, I'll kind of set the tone if you don't mind. So the finance committee met on Friday, talking about district finances, levy discussion, reduction, just kind of wide variety of things. And so what we decided on was to have Jane put together kind of a cheat sheet for us, which she put in the Dropbox and I think emailed out to everyone. It shows one column is November 2020 ballot, another one is spring 2021 ballot. And what it does is lists the amount of millage combined with the amount of reductions to get us to where we would need to be to get through the 5-year forecast. So it can be anywhere from, as an example, on the November ballot, it says 6 mil levy with 0 cuts would get us the unencumbered cash balance at the end of school year 23-24 of $264. Then it goes down in half millage increments all the way down. So again, scenarios for us on levy possibilities, amounts, and fall to spring, combined with some reductions, and also a reduction in our cash balance. So really what I was hoping to have tonight was, I'll say, a high-level discussion by the board on if we want to levy, would it be November or would it be in the spring of 2021? And if so, what millage amount would we want? And as we talked about that, there would be next to that millage amount that we would think about is a level of cuts that we would have to make. So I'm not expecting any decision by the board tonight on a levy or anything, but I would like us to maybe walk away with giving the administration some homework on if the board feels comfortable with a November ballot of 4 mil levy, admin has to do some homework to come up with $1.3 million reduction to bring to the board. Or if we decide in spring we want to put a levy on, we can decide, we can tell them 2 or 3 different levy scenarios, and they have to come back with some buckets of reductions that the board can then talk about and what we want to do. I think on the bottom of the sheet that Jane gave us, I think that if we want to put something on the ballot in November, the board has to make its first motion by July 24th. And also at the bottom of the page that Jane sent is some information on a earned income tax and what that would bring in 0.25% increments, and just a few in between. Jane, I don't know if I missed anything you want to clarify, or Hal?
You know, the only thing I'd add is it's a minor point. Doing nothing would require 3 million in cuts for next school year. The other cuts that are listed in here are for the 21-22 school year. So it'd be another lag year. Okay. That's the only thing I'd add.
So I don't know where we want to start. I don't know, Jane, you know, let's maybe start right at this year and maybe just do a quick outline of that 3 million. We've made a bit of a dent into that already.
No, this is on top of what we've already
Oh,
done.
is that on top of what we've
Yes.
already done?
Yes, I took our standard, I'd already adjusted the the 5-year forecast. I'd already adjusted it for the cuts that we had discussed at the last board meeting for COVID. So
How
this
much was that total, Jane? Was that like 1.1, 1.2?
For this next year, we had about 2.5, well, total 1.1, the net.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, this would be on top of that. So yeah, that's even worse news. I just wanted that in the back of everybody's head so that, you know, I don't
So I
think.
think kind of the first step is levy timing, you know. The one we had on failed. Does the board think something in November would be better? Spring? No levy? You know, that's kind of got to be the first one, because then you can talk about a little bit about what millage we think we could pass at each time. And then we could see the dollar amount of reduction we may need to put in place.
Well, I think the theory that the board needs to think about too is, you know, if we wait until the spring of 2021, obviously the millage goes significantly up, or the cuts go even significantly up. And so we have to think about, you know, clearly what we want Oregon City schools to look like, feel like, what we want to give and access to for our students, and how soon do we want to give our community a chance to, you know, vote again. I think there was so many unique circumstances surrounding this levy. The mere fact that it failed, I don't think tells the entire picture on how the community feels. COVID was a big change in our entire world and rocked it. Up until that point, you know, obviously I had a good feeling about how the levy was going, but you don't know, obviously, and we'll never know how that went. We also don't know what the election process will look like or feel like in the fall, right? That's a little bit of an unknown, whether it'll be in person or absentee or combination. So just things to think about, you know, what are the pros and cons of November? You know, maybe we start there if that's okay. I think one of the pros is we get another chance in 2020 for collections in 2021. The amount of reductions based on the amount of the millage, obviously, is going to be less, which means less impacts if it passes to kids and programs. Gives their community another chance. We would clearly put out, you know, what those reductions would be. They would be very articulated, very clear. So people would know what they're, you know, what they're voting for. You know, the COVID was a big hit. And so another piece is we don't know yet exactly what the next year's reduction from the state will be. We have estimates that Jane's done a great job with. That could go down, that could go up, could go either way. So
Those cuts we made were essentially a wash from the COVID reductions, correct?
For this year.
That we currently already made, right? Which what you updated the 5-year forecast on, because we had a $640,000 give or take reduction in foundation from COVID, and you're estimating somewhere around 1.3 to 1.8.
No,
Or
we for this fiscal year, we were kind of a wash with what we lost and what we were cutting because we weren't in school. So we had some savings in our
Some
expenses.
savings, right?
For next year, we're estimating approximately a $2.5 million reduction in our revenues.
And a $1.1 million.
And we had a reduction in our expenses of about right around 1.4 for a net 1.1. So bottom line, we've already got 1.397 in reductions for next fiscal year.
Okay.
In the forecast, it's already in there.
I guess I'll start with, I'm going to have the uncomfortable conversation or kind of what my feelings are on how we move the needle and what we need to look at as a board. And I guess Jane and Hal, I'll put this on you as a homework assignment to come back with. But in reviewing the 5-year forecast and looking at our fringe benefits as well as our salaries and wages over the course of the next 5 years, the only way that we're going to weather this storm and move the needle is if we have a shared responsibility. I don't want to see cuts to programs, cuts to kids, things that are going to affect kids like AP or career tech or busing or things like that. COVID did rock all of our worlds, and I think there's a shared responsibility. Administrators already took a pay freeze for next school year, that we reach out to our teachers across the aisle and ask to open up the contract and take a look at a freeze on their end as well. Look at things in the fringe benefit realm to help offset the costs we have from an insurance hike, in looking at spousal, instituting spousal, because that is something I think that numerous districts have already done across the state. It doesn't nobody loses any insurance. It just offers an alternative for those spouses that have insurance through their current company to get their insurance through their provider, through their company, as opposed to through the Oregon City Schools. And looking at a wage freeze, or not a step freeze, because I think we gave a step back in the last contract. Is that correct?
Yes.
And then we also have the steps as they move forward currently. So we're not looking at a total. This is, and again, my thoughts and the uncomfortable conversation. This is not a total freeze on wages. The steps will still go through, but look at the last contract that we put through and look at a freeze on those increases as well. Because if you look at the 5-year forecast, we're looking at $2 million from fiscal 21 to 22, an increase in wages, from 24 to 26, and then 22 to 24 up to about 27.8, 0.9. So another 1.5. So if we truly need to get to that $3 million number without passing a levy, then that's the only way we're going to make the needle move. I don't think we can nickel and dime our way through this. So that is my opinion.
Keith, I had run a quick number, very quick. Freezes for next year would save this is not including administrators, because we've already got administrators in the contract. It would save $830,000 both years.
Is that all employees minus administrators, like both unions and then?
Yep. So it'd be each year.
$830,000 per year.
Yep.
That would still keep the steps into the contract. So that's not,
because if
that's the step that was given back. Okay.
Yeah.
And then spousal, I think what's an estimate we've gotten back on that was somewhere close to 7 figures.
Yeah, well, we would have this year had we had a pure carve out. Now this is everybody. A true spousal carve out would have saved us $733,000 this year.
Okay, so we're looking at a little over $1.5 million in savings on an annual basis.
Yeah. Those are quick and dirty, please. So
yeah, correct. So I guess I'll leave that as my opinion to the board and to Hal and Jane to see what we can do to, as I said, take a shared responsibility at this before we start looking at, gutting the district from a kids and a program standpoint.
Like I said, and that does fill the gap of the COVID reductions, less the expense reductions we've already made, in that kind of gap of 1.4. And again, if we're assuming blame the COVID for some of this, it's not all COVID related, but some of it, that means it's temporary, and we hope to get funding back after 1 year, hopefully to the fullest, or very quickly get up in a year or two. This kind of shows the reduction across everyone, gets and closes that gap from the COVID, what we're getting the effect from COVID.
Yep, and Keith, to your point, yep, I will definitely, and I already have a meeting set up to begin discussions in a lot of different areas. So at the end of this week. So based on your direction, Jane and I will certainly be having that with our union leadership for sure.
Now, Jane, if that were to happen, kind of in a what if scenario, we do both of those, we get 1.5 million. That would allow us to comfortably shift to the spring of 2021 for a levy. Is that a fair statement?
Ooh, at a 5.5 mil levy.
Okay.
I don't know how comfortable a levy ever is, but that would, buy us that time.
But again, I talked about shared responsibility. I think, board members, administrators, teachers, community, that includes the community of putting something on the ballot. This is a shared responsibility, our community as a whole, to come together and help us weather this storm.
Mhm.
So Keith, you're thinking even this year potentially, given these scenarios?
Well, if we can get that 1.5, so then we're looking at only having to go to the ballot for about a 3.5 in November. I
Yeah.
think, which would be less burden on the taxpayer.
Okay.
And maybe we'd have a better cash balance, because and I think I said this to the finance committee when I sent this out to them ahead. If you look at the unencumbered cash balance, those are not what we typically strive for. We typically strive for 30 to 60 true cash days so that we, but with all the unknowns in the forecast, I was willing to cut it a little closer, because there are a lot of unknowns with the state.
Right, and another unknown is obviously the second gas plant, and
Yes.
Again, big if, but
Yeah.
It's an impactful if that were to happen, and that would probably be the year, I would imagine we'd be getting close if it does get kicked off at any point here in the near future.
You're right.
So
Right. Is there any, and I'm just asking the question because we talked about it at finance. Does everybody understand the earned income tax? This is not the full income tax. This is just for, this tends to be more popular with senior citizens because it's earned income only. It's not I don't believe it's investment income. It's not retirement income. So I'd have to get more details, but you don't collect quite as much per percentage because of it. And
So if we did a 0.25%, does that mean then Oregon would be they're at 2.5, this would be added on, it would be at 2.75?
okay, only residents are charged for school district income taxes. So yes, Oregon residents would be at 2.75. Your Jerusalem Township, of course, doesn't get the Oregon tax, so they would just have a 0.25. But it's important, it's different than city taxes in the sense that only residents are charged. For instance, the city, anyone who works in the city is charged the 2.25. That's a bit of a distinction, but.
Are there any precedents out there for an income tax utilized within the school districts that have stalemated growth in communities because of that? I mean, because we already have obviously an enrollment decline for individuals moving into the Oregon community. I don't want to add something on that would potentially stalemate that as well.
I don't know. I know I was looking at, I forgot Perrysburg has an income tax. That's the only one in Lucas County besides the rural districts. They tend to be more popular in rural districts, obviously for obvious reasons, because if you have a lot of farmland, your real estate taxes are higher. And so they tend to use it as a tool. Not for or against, it's been brought up a couple times by several senior citizens. Only reason it's in front of you tonight. And also,
well, and obviously it's an income tax, right? So I mean, right now we have 40 million people nationwide unemployed. I think Oregon's probably around 25% unemployment currently. So, I mean, we wouldn't even really be collecting the full amount based on where the unemployment rates are, right? I mean, we're not.
What the state's been, well, no, you're right. I would assume less of a pickup. It also takes 18 months to collect. That's one of the downsides. It takes 18 months for full collection, so you can't address, that's why if you notice, you have to do a few more cuts ahead of time, you know. I'm not for or against, I'm just, you know, I typically, with the amount of our city income tax, I would typically say yikes, no, but it's an option, so.
What would a 3.5 mil levy cost the average $100,000 homeowner?
I don't have that calculated yet. I apologize. We'll get that for you when it's.
Okay.
Typically, that's one of the reasons. It's typically the income tax is going to cost people more. I don't know. It just depends what your income is. I'm sorry, but I don't know.
No, I meant on our, if we were just to stick with a 3.5 mil from a property tax standpoint.
Here, I can pull it up and look into it while you guys talk. Let me take a look because I've got a screen. I just didn't have it ready yet.
So let's talk a little bit about just the climate of a November levy, no matter what it is. You know, we chose to go in March for a couple of reasons. One was just that we did not know what the climate was going to be in November, good, bad, or indifferent, and to give us a couple of shots, I guess, at it, at the levy. So we're in this spot where, you know, we do have another opportunity to pass something in 2020. But let's talk about that ability to pass based on basic conversations. I know I've had some informal conversations with you guys. I don't know, Mike or Heather, or Carol, if any of you have kind of been hearing from anyone just about, there's so many other things that people are thinking about. I totally understand that.
Well, I would say that the average person is going to say that they're not going to vote for a levy. However, if we're working with everyone trying to make cuts with, you know, we have these recommendations, not that all of these are going to take place, but if we don't also throw in a levy at the same time, I don't know how it's fair to those people who may be required to do a spousal carve out, or if they choose to do a wage freeze or the types of things like that. We as administrators and board members have to make sure that we're trying to put to the public, as Keith said, everybody's sharing in this. This isn't just an administrator problem. This just isn't a school teacher problem. This isn't a board problem. This is teachers, and it's also our community. The community benefits the most from this. You know, our administrators and our teachers are employees, okay? And they happen to be doing their job on taxpayer dollars. That's how it's based. However, we also have to realize the fact that all of this is opening negotiations again during this time span. Hopefully we can work with them in a manner where we are fair and equitable to everyone concerned. I mean, you know, we went quite a while with our employees on lower wages. So now we're, because of the COVID or because of, you know, downswings in our curve on the economy, now we're looking at saying, well, we gave you this last year, now we're taking it back. I mean, we have to do a lot of good research, and that's what this meeting is about. We're discussing it. You know, we often throw in career and tech. You know, we have to let the community know that if we cut career and tech, they're automatically going to get a millage for our students going to Pennant County. Okay, so if we send them there, this is a non-voted millage that they will be encumbering. So we have to be fair with the community as we're talking about people sharing what we're doing. That, you know, if we give our taxpayers an opportunity to support our students and our educational patterns that we like, which I think career tech education is very important, that if we do choose to drop it as administrators and board members, that they will automatically, without any choice, be taxed in order to keep career and tech viable to our students who go to Penn, you know, Career Center. You know, so we have to look at all of those factors, and we have to make sure that as we make these choices, that we work together. I think we're very capable of doing it, and I have faith in our community. I think our community has just went through one heck of a situation with this COVID. I think we've all learned a lot. I think there's a rude awakening of how hard our administration and our teachers worked. So as we look at this, this is going to be a give and a take. So, you know, we have to look at it. I don't think anyone on this Board of Education is trying to make any decisions tonight. I don't think Hal is. And Jeff, you started out with saying this is a baseline to work with. And thank you for saying that, because I think that's what we really have to work with. I know we have a short time, but that also means I think we have to go with a levy in November. I mean, if we're not going with a levy in November, I think we're not being fair to our administrators who already took a freeze, our teachers who may or may not, you know, however we work with this to do the best thing, we have to give our community an opportunity. We have to give our teachers and our classified people an opportunity, and we have to give our administration an opportunity.
I did a quick calc. I'm sorry to interrupt. A quick calc. It's $123 for a $100,000 home at 3.5 mils.
Thank you.
123 per 100,000.
Yes.
Okay.
And
On an annual basis.
yes, it is. It'd be an increase of $123.
Well said, Mike. I think it's a shared responsibility between everybody.
Well, and I just want those who are watching to know that, you know, Mike mentioned career tech, and that was our campaign 5 years ago, or 5.5 years ago, was obviously a lot of that same conversation. And, you know, we have worked very, very hard to continue to boost career tech. It's a big part of who we are. And I agree, that would be a dagger in the heart if we had to go down that road for any reason for all of us. And it's certainly not at the top of my list. I have a list, and there isn't too many things on the top of that list. They're all at the bottom of that list. Back in between 08 and 2011, we made major reductions in this district and transformed it at that point in time. So if we have to go through that next level of transformation, you're significantly talking about a district that doesn't resemble anything close to opportunities for kids, because those things that we are going to have to reduce are why people attend Oregon City schools. It's our electives. It's which, you know, there's electives at every level. You can go through that, but that's all we have left. We don't have double programs. We don't have things that we were able to kind of look at last time. Like just for example, career tech back had a lot of double teaching programs, right? 2 teachers in the same program. And we were able to keep the program, but maybe bring it down to a 1 teacher program. And that was quite a few of them. Although it was painful, you know, it still allowed kids to have access. So anything we do moving forward is going to begin to devastate the district. And I know our community, certainly our parents, do not want Oregon schools devastated. And I will do anything and everything I can. And I know our staff, you know, we'll have conversations with our staff about what we can do. And but at the end of the day, the balance sheet is the balance sheet, and COVID is forcing schools and businesses around the country to make hard, tough choices. You know, I've gone back and forth on my thoughts on November, you know, back and forth. And I'm now back on the swing that I really think we need to push forward with a levy of some kind, of some number. Don't know what that number is. Whatever we land on, we'll make it, because I think if we don't, we've at least missed an opportunity. Now there are costs associated with running a levy, right? And if we all feel it's just throwing money away because we don't think there's any chance it will pass. The problem is we don't have time right now to do a solid, you know, real true community survey to find out, you know, what's on their minds. I mean, we could do something quick and easy, but right now everybody's going to say no. I don't want to pay more money. On the other hand, they don't understand what could happen. And I think whenever we do make a decision on what to do, you know, we'll be very articulate with specific positions. If that's what, I mean, does the board agree with that we need to have specific positions moving forward, or items that we believe, right? High school busing comes up all the time. You know, is high school busing something we would put on that list, right? I don't know. You know, you mentioned AP, Keith. Is that something we put on the list? Gifted and talented. You can go down every elective, all the STEM programs, PE, music, arts, all those are electives. That's where we start.
And each and every one of us have a desire that we like. Some of us are pro athletics. Some of us are in favor of busing. Some of us are in favor of AP. so we have to make sure when we do this that we're fair and equitable to everyone. And Hal, I think your statements are very true. We do not want to go backwards. We went backwards in 2008 when we started our problem before. We took away career and tech courses, we took away academic courses, we took away building and maintenance employees, our cafeteria, every area of Oregon City schools was devastated at that time. We have just built back up. And yes, it does cost money to run an educational institution. I mean, what we pay and what our people pay compared to what they're going to pay when they go to college is minute. And we have to keep in mind that the education that our students get in public education far, far outreaches anything, because every student has an opportunity to learn. And we have to keep that in mind. In college, you choose to go there. Our students, we have to educate. It doesn't matter if they're at-risk students, if they're at AP students or whatever. We got to keep and maintain this educational philosophy that we have. And I think all of us on this board and our administration believe in it. So I promise I will work with all of you. We need to work together to try and keep what we have as strong as we can. And I hope all of the fellow board members believe in the same thing.
We had a 4.9 on this March. I mean, if we do a levy in November, I don't know how we can go for anything less. I mean, we can look at scenarios. We can look at all kinds of scenarios. In a 4.9, I mean, we're still cutting another million, million-ish.
750 probably, 750,000.
750, okay.
Yeah, but it's up to $1 million, yeah.
And that's going to be hard to find that million. I mean, we're going to be hurting programs at that million. I mean, no doubt about it. But to go even less, to try to cut another 1.2 million this year for this upcoming year without giving our community a chance to at least support us, just doesn't sit right with me personally. I don't want to do that to our programs. I've worked real hard to help build them up. And
We're going to go back to the shared responsibility aspect. We the things I discussed, we could get close to $2 million in cuts with a 3.5 mil, 123 per $100,000 home.
So maybe
it's a shared responsibility. And I think from the public standpoint is, to lighten the tax burden load on the public is the board, the administrators, the union, all working together to overcome this deficit. So
I agree with Keith. If we do nothing, it's going to fail in November. I mean, you don't do nothing, you're going to get the same result. And in order to pass it, there's got to be some give and take by everyone at the table to show the public that everyone's hurting, everyone's taking a piece of this. And that's, I think, the only chance you have to pass a levy in November.
And Hal, I'd point out one more time, and we can rework this, but for the millage, for instance, the cuts don't start until 21, 22. So if we were to start them next year, it would probably be a lesser amount. Does that make sense? I took it as a cut starting 21, 22. Give people a chance to vote on it. These are the cuts though, regardless. We have to make cuts plus 11.
And the shared responsibility scenario allows us that opportunity to not have to go through those devastating conversations of elimination of career tech and AP and busing and athletics. And
so Jane, if what Keith says comes to some sort of fruition, say 1.5, the millage amount and the cuts you got for 2020, 21, 22. So you'd have to kind of redo the scenario, right, to build those and then say what it would be, because it'd be a lot less. Okay.
There'd be a lot less position cuts. For instance, if we were to even just get the freeze, that would start a year early, which would then reduce the amount we have to cut further. So yeah, I can redo that, no problem. I can even send it out, not yet tonight, but tomorrow, so we can look at that. But I wanted something that was realistic in terms of when we could get the cuts going.
The other piece that I hear all the time is you didn't really cut enough the last time. And I think we need to put out there what we actually did do. I mean, we closed Wynn School, we got rid of a lot of teachers. And I think that information also has to go out, that we already cut it to the bone. And this is really cutting it into the bone if we don't get a levy. I
Yeah.
think that needs to be put out there, because there are a number of people who keep passing the word, well, they didn't do what they should have done the last time.
Yeah. And we did put out, I think I sent Hal copies of all the different cut lists we put out there. We had, gosh, we've done it several different times. I think
Yep.
we did it in 7 or at least 8. Then we did a second one because we
Yeah.
wanted to reduce the millage, so we cut more. So there's been extensive cuts.
Yeah, and Carol, I agree with you, and I have those documents Jane provided. It's now reworking them in a usable fashion because it's just a lot of numbers and a lot of things, but putting them in a nice organization for the public, because you're going to see some big numbers on that. And we still have, within the life of this forecast, reductions of TPP of $1.3 million in the next 4 years, and we're not being helped. This trend of shifting the burden to state frustrates me as much as it does to you. And there's no way we can not have a levy. And so the shared responsibility, I guess that's going to be the new, way we go about it, because it's moving that way more and more from the state to the local taxpayers, let alone the employees, those types of things. And that shared responsibility seems to be burdened, and we don't know what future state cuts, look like. So that really worries me. So again, it seems like our next step is to just have some conversations. It's kind of what I'm hearing, right? Is that what I'm hearing, Jeff, Keith, others? And see if there's anything that can happen with our 2 locals, and come up with a plan. And if that isn't the case, then we can come back, obviously, in the June meeting and make some decisions. I guess we would have a full month, right? Because we could go, Jane, you saying probably on our July regular meeting, do the first motion on a levy.
July 24th is the deadline,
Yes.
or November.
And then a second motion in October or August.
I believe that I have to have it, just a second. I have to have it to the Board of Elections in August.
In August, so may require a special meeting then.
Yeah, we can, and while we're working through this crisis, if we need additional meetings, we're gonna have them, because this is not something, this is gonna take a lot of work. This isn't a quick decision.
Right.
I mean, we have a lot of people that we have to discuss this with, and the scenarios that are gonna come out are not gonna be simple scenarios. We've talked about a lot of different things in the finance committee that obviously will come up a little differently as we go into these other scenarios. But the general items have came forward that Jeff and I and Hal and Jane have talked about in our meetings. But
Jane, I hate to bring this up, but is there any value in another state performance audit? It's been, 10 years? Is there any value in even considering it?
Well, considering the majority of the, it's going to cost a lot of money. Actually, Carol, I think I said how much it was going to be. Was it
$77,000.
$77,000? Reality is they tend to take you back to basic minimums. I mean, that's really.
I mean, we can pretty much do a performance audit ourselves by saying what's bare minimum and.
Yeah. And also, obviously we know there's room in our insurances, that's a lot of it. I'm not saying they wouldn't provide anything, but it is $77,000, and it's a lot of the same recommendations, frankly, when you get down to it.
well, basically, when you go to a performance audit and you're working with the state, they're looking at bare minimums.
Yeah.
If they're going to cut us down to bare minimums, I mean, I don't believe that's what this group of people want to do, is go to bare minimums. We've discussed in finance, we've discussed in other conversations that we have a very good educational system. And I'll be damned if we're going to have the state cut us down because a few people want to make sure that we're cutting our salaries of our employees, we're cutting numbers of teachers. We need to perform at a good level. Now, if you can find areas that we can reduce without harming our students, that's one thing. But our classroom numbers, I don't believe we're in excess of any classroom numbers, are we, Hal, that we need to worry about? I mean, we're pretty stable with numbers in classrooms to where we're meeting our needs of the state
Well,
requirements.
We are reducing every year based on enrollment. So that we haven't stayed, I mean, in my 6 or 5 years as superintendent, I mean, if you look at the total number of certificated staff right now, we're negative because we've been reducing based on enrollment. For example, we reduced 2 fifth grade positions this year because of enrollment. That smaller group of kids is moving into 5th grade. And then next year, we're going to be reducing 2 6th grade positions. Now, we've been able to do that through attrition and retirement, and no one has lost any jobs, which has been good, you know, and that's just good planning. And again, the wild card is always our kindergarten numbers on whether or not we need to bring in a kindergarten or not. You know, right now we're at 10. We waver between 10 and 11. So we were at 10 a couple years ago. This year we added 1, so we were at 11. But I won't add that 11th one back this upcoming year unless our numbers are at a point where we must have it.
But historically, when this happens, they start with busing, athletics, extracurricular,
right,
advanced placement, all of the things we talked about. So in order for an audit to come through, I mean, all we're doing is asking to make those cuts, and we already know we need to make them. If that's what we have to do to go to a lesser educational institution, we already know that. So
Well,
spending $70-some thousand to do it, to me, I think is a waste of money. It's not proving anything to anyone.
yeah, we're not at a point where we need an audit. If our 5-year forecast isn't adjusted or changed, we're going to be forced to do it anyways. Yeah. So I'm not going to jump the gun on an audit. I think Jeff said it well. I mean, I can sit down with you guys, Jane and I can, and we can show you bare minimum based on the numbers.
well, also how we did invest a small amount of money in a benchmarking system that we can compare ourselves to the I-75 ring, and we can see how we compare on typically our housekeeping, because we did at that time, and we haven't really added a bunch of custodians. We did a very thorough review of our cleaning, and we have specific standards. And I think we even brought them now with COVID, and they may have to go up again, but we have benchmarking that we are looking at and have been looking at. So I
Our
think
operations side of the house is fantastic.
Yeah.
I'll put our numbers up against any school district anywhere. We've looked at that. We're fine. And just so you know, our total operations cost to the district, I just want to remind everybody that's watching. I mean, there's 660 public school districts in the state of Ohio, and our cost per pupil is right almost dead average with the whole. It's just a couple $100 above, but we are not overspending in this district. We have been hit hard by a situation that we do need to now look at every aspect of our spending, no doubt about it. But we're doing what's right for kids and education. We know it. Our teacher salaries are, at least compared to the Lucas County, are certainly in range, and comparable, and at the lower range, even after the raises. But even with all that said, our reality is that we've got these tough decisions to make, no doubt about it. And that reality was accelerated by several $1 million because of the COVID situation, no doubt about it.
And Hal, I always preach when we're comparing our cost per pupil to the state average, not all schools have comprehensive, have career tech as part of them. And Mr. Shea's already mentioned that adds additional mills, but there's no, I mean, yes, we're average cost, but we include career tech. And so that changes it. You know, we're giving more services to our kids.
We checked on the 20 or 24 comparable districts that the state of Ohio uses on that CUP report that everybody loves to compare. And there was only one that was comprehensive on that entire list. That there wasn't another one that was career tech embedded in their own school system. Yeah. So there's some flaws in the data reporting too, if that's the only measure you want to look at. Again, I'm not here to preach, but that's part of our sell as a levy to the community, is like, we are doing right by you, and we need your support, and we'll continue to need your support. And this community has been supporting levies for a lot of years. I mean, you know, they have a strong, rich history of support, but these ups and downs hit us, and you know, we're going to weather it just fine. We're going to figure out a way to make it work. Hopefully working together. I don't know. I think I understand what our marching orders are, Jane, at least as of right now tonight.
Yep, I
don't know.
do.
Jeff, if there's anything else that you think we didn't, we can come back then on the 16th with the report or the regular board meeting.
Yeah, Mike, I don't know if you want a finance committee before the next regular meeting again, just to
I
update
think
us
we
on
should,
what they've
Jeff.
done.
I think the last one was very productive, and I think we should have one probably halfway, not the Friday before, maybe a little bit. What do we have as far as time span right now for the regular one? Didn't we set one up, another one?
Are you not available for whatever the next meeting day is?
I cannot make the 16th. Our
That's
regular,
far enough advance. If we look at a calendar, if we agree on a date, I might be able to change.
Well, Keith, so you can't make the 16th. Are you gone that week or is it just?
I'm gone just that night.
So.
You're
we
talking
can
the regular
run
board
Wednesday.
meeting.
I mean, either.
Yes.
Okay.
I could, I mean, if you guys were willing to change for me, I could do Monday the 15th or Wednesday the 17th.
Well, I think we need to change for you. I think that's just, we need to be flexible. Obviously, our schedules change and that, so whatever.
This is
works
far
for the
enough in
board.
advance to be able to make those adjustments to our calendar. Is there anything better for everyone else? 15th, 17th, 18th, that works for everybody?
I'm fine with any of those.
15th, 17th, 18th is good with me.
We do Monday the 15th.
Can we do 5? Or you want
I
to
can
keep
do
it at
5.
normal 6 since it's a regular meeting?
Well, it's a regular meeting. Let's do 6 since it's a regular meeting.
Yeah, I can do that.
So we'll be changing the 15th instead of the 16th.
Thank you.
Do we want finance then to meet on the 12th?
That's what I was thinking.
Do you want it that Friday before? Do you want to?
What do you think, Jeff? Is that, I mean, because the thing is that the agenda is going to be out and we're just going to be making reports. So where do you feel on that? Would it be better to have it a day or so ahead of time?
I'll give it to 12th because that gives Jane and Hal more time to have discussions.
12th is fine.
And if they need 2 or 3 discussions, then they've got that time.
Okay, so we're going to have the regular board meetings on the 15th. And
And
that's if everybody else agrees with that. I mean, is that good with Carol and everybody else? I know 3 people have spoken, Jeff, I, and Heather.
Fine with
Keith
that.
requested it. Carol, does that work for you?
Not very well.
Oh, okay.
Okay, 6 o'clock on the 15th is what I understand.
So
And
Carol,
we'll
that
do our
doesn't
2
work well
o'clock,
for you.
Jeff, on the 12th, same as we did last time.
Yeah.
Mike, that doesn't work for Carol.
Carol said it
Carol-
doesn't work for Monday.
Which one doesn't?
the
15th.
15th.
Oh,
Could you do the
15th is not?
17th?
What about the 17th?
Fifteenth's better than 17th.
Oh, shoot. Is it a different time that would work better for you on the 15th?
Or Keith,
Yeah.
is there a different time on the 16th that would work better for you?
Oh, yeah.
Or is that whole day bad?
Well, I have the day available. I'm gone in the evening.
Yeah, okay. That's what I was wondering. I mean, is there a way we could maybe move the meeting up?
What's the latest you could do it if it was a 2-hour meeting? Or hour and a half meeting? What's the latest you could start the meeting then, Keith?
On Tuesday, the 16th?
Yeah,
Like 3 or 2?
I could do a 3 o'clock till 5.
Carol, would that work or the rest of the board to move it up? I
If
know it's
we-
the middle of the day and that may be tough. I'm just throwing it out there.
If we
Heather,
just-
stuff for you?
I don't know if I'm gonna be
Work.
back.
Just do it the 15th at 6. I'll work it out.
Is 5:30 better for you?
No,
No?
Later? Is 7 better?
just leave it at 6. It's all right.
On the 15th.
Yeah.
And finance on the 12th at 2, Jeff?
yes.
Okay. Very cool.
So I guess 2 other, I'll say questions. Public notice. Hal and Jane, I know we talked to Jane a little bit. We fax out the agenda and post it on the website. Can we expand that and have like 2 postings on our social media pages, one a week before and then one the day before to hit maybe the general public and not just the media? Trying to think how we can expand, how we can get the community, not the media, but the community aware of it.
What I
little bit
don't
better.
understand is most media puts it in a paper. That's the whole point of giving it to the media so they can get it out there, but our media doesn't do that.
Well, I'm thinking a public notice of a meeting so the public can attend or watch, not for the media to report a week later on what happened.
Well, no, but typically media reports it, doesn't report it, but puts the meeting time out there. That's the whole point of giving it to the media. Every other community I've been in has put it, you know, they have it in the paper, they put it on the radio, you know, that's what their purpose is.
I don't think unless it's something really juicy, it doesn't show up anywhere.
Okay.
And I don't know. I personally, I don't want to get into expanding our advertising only from the standpoint of it's one more thing.
It's cost.
There's so many more things and one more thing. I mean, can we put it on our Facebook? Yeah, if that's what you're asking.
Yeah, just put it in Facebook. That's, I mean, I don't know what
That's
else.
what you're asking. We can put it on our Facebook.
Yeah, it's like 1 week or a day before, just so people know, are aware of it. Because a lot of times they say, we didn't know about the meeting, you guys snuck it in.
Oh, but I don't buy that. We've been doing this for the same date and time for the last 50 years. I mean, that people who want to know, people who want to use it as an excuse not to know, use that as an excuse. So I have no problem.
Well, hey, but it eliminates one less excuse, right?
But don't give me this that people don't know about it, because
It's
I
on the website
personally-
too.
That's,
Yeah.
you know, that's nonsense. If they want to know, they know.
I don't know, look how many I've missed because I forget the date and time.
Yeah, and you're sending notice, Jeff.
Yeah, I don't know what to say to that.
Start reading your email, Jeff.
Yeah.
The second one is, can we start doing them in person with having it open to the public and have the chairs spaced apart and have us spaced apart? Starting with the regular meeting on the 15th.
No,
So Carol's not comfortable coming in.
I'm too susceptible, Jeff.
Heather, you okay with keeping them remote, I guess?
I'm great
That's-
with that.
What Carol's suggesting?
Yeah, that works fine with me.
So I guess my concern is just that we're making some big decisions and we're in a bubble of Zoom and YouTube. That's,
Well,
I mean,
don't
that's the
like
concern.
this Either.
Well, Jeff, no one is able to comment during our board meetings anyway. You know, they can speak at the beginning if they want with public participation, but we basically are conducting a meeting just as we are here on Zoom, and they have an opportunity to listen. The only other thing that we could,
You know, we could have an email set up where they could begin to participate via email, or if they have if they have some comments they want to send us in writing at least. Or, I mean, you know, if there's something that we truly want them, they can be invited in, I guess, Zoom wise. I don't know.
Or create a video that we could show prior
Yeah,
to the
maybe.
meeting if they want to do something along those lines.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it would have to be limited under the same parameters of public participation that we normally follow. But
So why don't Carol, maybe you work with Hal and Dawn on some type that follows Robert's rules of order as far as public participation and the OSBA's rules, figure out a way that we could offer the public participation aspect from a virtual standpoint.
Well, I would think they should be able to send in questions at any time, email, text, whatever.
Okay, so we just send notification out to the public that we're going to remain virtual with maybe with the announcement of the board meeting, Hal, the week prior, with the agenda on the Facebook, and just add in public participation.
Is
We
there
will
a
be allowing-
comment feature on the YouTube that when, if anything does come in, that Don could forward it to Carol or Hal or anything, and they can
I'm
make
not in
that?
favor of that, Jeff. I'm in favor of posting public participation, but not us having to look at emails or texts or anything coming in during the meeting, because we don't have, that doesn't happen during a normal meeting. Just because we're doing a Zoom, they shouldn't be allowed to communicate. This isn't Facebook. This is a professional organization that's doing a meeting.
I'm just trying to think, how can we replace the public participation
Well,
piece of it if we're gonna continue to be virtual?
One of the things we can do is use the chat feature if we wanted to during the public participation time. I mean, just
Yeah, I
during.
guess that's what I was asking.
Yeah, so I think we can do that. That would probably be the easiest. We'd have to set up exactly how someone accessed that chat. I mean, I'm sure they just need this link.
Sure.
But I can work with Dawn on that, and we'll figure something out that works. I understand that we're not trying to close out the public. I certainly am not trying to close out the public at all. But the reality is, and I'm okay with Carol. I mean, suggestion to stay virtual. It's still legal. It's still what most boards are doing, from my understanding. I know some still meet, but so if we work out the public participation and articulate that, everybody's good?
Yeah.
At least to stay this way? Okay. Good. All right. Well, is there, or Carol, I don't know if we want to continue with the agenda, if there's anything else or any other financial stuff that we need to touch base on?
I don't have anything else. Does anyone else have anything?
Nope.
No.
Okay, so basically, before we finalize, we're looking at the scenarios for a levy. We're also looking at bringing information to us on insurance carriers, the costs that are there, what the options are for carve out, bringing that to the board so we have an understanding of the cost effectiveness. Setting up an opportunity to communicate with our two unions to see what they may come up with to help us. Okay, and to see what we're doing in that situation. So I would say for our next board meeting, and at least for our finance meeting, I would like to see what is possible with the insurance. Jane, I know they've given us numbers, but I also know that everyone is experiencing the COVID. I think we do need to talk, as we said, we need to share it. We need to talk with our unions and see where they are. And we also need to work with our community and justify why we're putting millage on and what type we're going to look at. So is that what we're looking for you to come back with us for the next board meeting and finance meeting? Is that fair?
Yeah, I mean, we'll certainly know, at least preliminary discussions with our two unions and where that's at. That's, we'll have that. And then we'll have scenarios put together with reductions that you can look at.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know I don't want to overcomplicate it. I mean, essentially that's where it's at, and that'll give you information to look at what number or whether or not you want to hold it to fall. So
Fine, when you bring it to the finance committee, Jeff and I and you guys can make a decision on what direction we want to go. That's what the finance committee is for, is to make recommendations to the board. So if we think things are way out off on a limb, we may not look at those.
Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure we know what we're expecting for the next finance committee and for the next board meeting.
Yep. And the next board meeting is obviously the full
I'm
meeting.
finished.
So we'll have other motions and sort
Sure.
at the next meeting as well. So, all right.
Okay, any reason for an executive session?
I see.
Any further discussion? Okay, we need a motion to close the meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call?
All right, Mr. Shea,
Yes.
Mr. Kennedy,
Yes.
Mrs. Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Zavisky,
Yes.
and Mrs. Molnar.
Yes. Thank you, everyone.
All right.
All right.
Thank you all.
Thank
Be
you,
safe.
everybody.
Have a wonderful evening.
Nice time.